feel crazy.
No, please don't feel crazy. My feelings for you haven't changed, and like, I hope.
Ooh. All right. Hey guys, welcome to Little Black Book 91. I know. You are looking at the scene and you are probably thinking, she's crazy. And you would not be remiss for thinking that. But I want you to understand something. I believe this is a really great example of somebody who has an anxious attachment and how they spiral. Now, if you're somebody who's a fearful avoidant, you can also identify with this because fearful avoidants have both attachment styles, right? The anxious attachment style versus secure here, because what we saw with Daniel was that he immediately was able to recognize this spiral and was able to reassure her while she was overthinking, while she was being hypervigilant, while she was spiraling down the rabbit hole of accusing him of something that she didn't have no proof of, and then finally had to go through her phone to see it and was actually wrong. She actually admitted to us that she's an overthinker. Now, I think this is really important because when we're dealing with relationships, everybody's trying to get to a more secure place if you're not secure already. And I think this is a really great video to explain this, okay? I think Daniel was able to explore a place of reassurance for her because he felt emotionally safe and was regulated. Many of us would have reacted in a maybe different way if we come from a very insecure attachment. Now, for those of you who don't know what attachments are, attachment styles are something that John Bowlby and Mary Ainsworth spoke about as an experiment between children and a caregiver. What would happen is a child would bond or attach to the parent. As they would leave and as they would come in, they would monitor how the child would react. And they noticed there were three main attachment styles. That was John Bowlby. Mary Ainsworth came and added a fourth one. The first three were secure, which is what everyone should strive to be, which is you are emotionally regulated, you feel safe, you're able to receive, give, you're able to be emotionally available, you see your parent leave, you can have a healthy attachment to the parent that comes in and not run away or avoid or cling too much. The child has a nice balance in a sense, right? And then you have the other three, which is you have anxious, which is those who feel like they never are good enough. They always feel like, having to earn love. They always feel like, they have to try and cling on and prove that they are worthy of love. And then you have the avoidance, who they are dismissive and fearful avoidant. The dismissive believes that they're always dismissed. They dismiss everybody else and dismiss themselves, and they often carry a wound of being afraid of being rejected. And then we have fearful avoidance, who carry both the anxious and the avoidant traits. And so we're going to talk about the anxious versus the secure aspect in this instance. I think we saw a great explanation of how it works. Daniel being a secure and Taylor being the anxious. We saw her spiral into a place because she felt like she had seen him. We saw her spiral because she thought she had seen him following her on Instagram. And I know what that would have meant. That would have been a huge issue, because if he had been following her, that would mean that he's a stalker. Yeah, and he would have known that she was on a show and what she looked like, etc., etc. And I get where she was going with it, but it was her overthinking. So let's break it down a little bit more, because we have to ask a serious question. Though I believe Daniel handled it exceptionally well, and I believe it was a great marker for a lot of us how to handle something. The question is, will this relationship survive the push and pull? Will it survive these accusations? Will it survive the anxious spiraling that she ends up doing and overthinking? Will his patience outlast her willingness to almost self-sabotage relationships? Well, we're going to discuss that on the rest of this video. But before we do, make sure you guys are liking, you're sharing, you're subscribing. Leave a comment down below. What's your thoughts? Before I get deeper, what is your thoughts? Leave a comment down below. Let's have a talk and let's get an introduction.
You know what time it is.
Do you believe me?
I do. But you didn't know. Like, maybe you did follow me at some point.
Yeah.
But if you...
Yeah, basically.
Whew, man, I don't know if you've ever been in that place where you accuse someone and you got it wrong. It can be a scary thing. Now, what's really powerful about this is we see the aftermath of her accusation and how we can see by her body language and her facial expressions she feels stupid. Because she made an accusation, there was no proof, and then she found out that actually she was the problem. Right? And that's what happens when you go down the spiral. Now, what's really interesting is the immediate reaction by Daniel. He asked her, do you believe me? And then he reached out. He didn't leave her to it. He actually reached out. Some of us will be feeling so hurt after this accusation. We'll say, listen, give me an hour. Because I need to process what you just did to me. Right? That might be the avoidant respect, right? The avoidant response to somebody. Give me an hour. I need to process the fact that you accusing me. And I listened to it myself and I said, me having an avoidant trait, an avoidant attachment, I'm growing into a more secure place, I know what would happen to me. I'd have felt so offended that you accused me of that. Because what it's really saying is that One, you don't trust me, which I never had for my parents in the first place because of the emotional connection that we didn't necessarily have, right, as a dismissive avoidant. The second thing would have been, I don't feel heard, I don't feel seen, and you don't really know me, right? I thought I put myself out on the line, and actually, by you accusing me, you're actually rejecting me. So my core wound is now activated. Do you see what happens, right? My core wound is now activated. So what am I going to do? I'm hurt. I'm going to avoid. I'm not about to reach out my hands and hold your hands. The anxious person, right, would also feel some type of way, but they may also process it differently. They'll now try to make it up to you for the next few weeks to prove they aren't that person you just said they are. Right? The fearful avoidant, depending on what scale they are and depending on what you do, they are going to fall on either spectrum, where they may try to avoid or they may try to also be somebody who tries to prove it, right? You might get a very hot and cold response. Or rather, you might even get a place where I like to say that fearful avoidants might even fawn. They play like they're okay, but for the next few weeks, they're going to be punishing you. Them and the dismissive avoidance, myself and them, yeah, the avoidance can do that kind of stuff, right? But what he did was that he instantly reached out. He felt emotionally secure and safe enough and regulated enough to reach out over to her, to hold her hands, to reassure her, even though he had been accused. Now, many of you might not have done this. Why? Because in your attachment style, you feel like you are the offended party and you deserve to be to be redeemed. I should say redeemed. Is that the right word? You deserve payback. And I don't mean payback in the sense of like getting your own back, but rather they should be making it up to you. But what he did in that moment was, I know you're spiraling. I know that you are not coming from a bad place, because he's able to put himself in that space where he says, I know what your impact is, but I know what your intention was. You wasn't trying to hurt me, but you were trying to get your safety. He could process it in a way that he felt safe enough to be able to go, I'm going to reach out to you. I'm going to offer the olive branch. I'm going to hold your hands. That's the secure response. That he gave her room to spiral. It's not about a man versus woman, by the way. This is actually literally how we should be handling each other. He was able to give her room to let her spiral and said, oh, you spiral, I hear it. Do what you need to do in order to make you feel safe. Let's listen a bit more.
I promise you. I promise you I didn't know. I promise. Whatever you need to do to like process.
As you hear him say, whatever you need to process, you do it. Whatever you're needing from me or whatever you're needing to do to process, you do it. And that's because he's a more secure individual, right? Now, if we're talking about the anxious versus secure aspect, you have to understand that the person who's anxious, all right, they have a hypervigilance, like we saw with her right now, right? When she suggested about he followed her and questioned him, he must have followed her. That was her hypervigilance. Why would she be hypervigilant? Because she was looking out for traits of him betraying her and him being dishonest, because then that would mean I'm about to be betrayed, I'm about to be abandoned, I'm about to be rejected. Something's going to happen. And actually, the fear of betrayal actually really more resides with fearful avoidance than it does with the anxious person. The anxious person is actually more looking for a fear of abandonment than actual betrayal. So this is more of a fearful avoidant kind of thing, right? But still, nonetheless, her anxious side of her, immediately hypervigilant, was looking for those patterns. Right? She now later admits that she was overthinking and has a tendency to ruminate and create negative scenarios in her mind. Why? Because she's self-sabotaging. Because when you've been in a place of destitute, when you've been in a place of debt, when you've been in a place where there is toxicity, when you've been in relationships that have taken from you, not given, when you've been in relationships that didn't understand you, when you've been in relationships that actually burden you, that hurt you, and that confirm your own projection and your own biases that you have about yourself, when you have relationships that further exasperate the emotional safety that you don't carry, guess what's going to happen? When you get into an emotionally safe environment, you're already looking for, when is it going to crash? When is it all going to, when are the cameras going to come out? When is Aston Kutcher about to come out and tell me this is all a prank? Because that's what you're looking for. You're looking for the betrayal, the abandonment, and the rejection, the core wounds of the three insecure attachments. But because he doesn't carry those wounds, it seems like, right? And if you watch his family later on, they seem to be very wholesome. He was able to contain what her feelings were without internalizing it and without having to personalize it. That's huge. So if you're somebody trying to get to a secure place, what you're looking to do is, in that moment when they do what they do, you're not personalize it. Let me give you an example of what personalization would look like. If I accuse you, like you said, if I accuse you right? Let's say I say, oh, you were being rude to me, right? But let's say I wasn't being rude to you, but maybe I'm spiraling. You know what I'm saying to you? And I'm saying I'm being rude to you. In your head, you're going, okay, wait, hold on. I know I'm not being rude. So this must be about the other person. Let me not take it on board and personalize it. And when you personalize it, what happens is you link it to a pain that you already have in your heart. So let's say he says let's say you accuse you of being rude. The pain that you might have in your heart is this person's trying to be dishonest. This person's trying to betray me. This person's trying to abandon me. Or they're trying to reject me. Or they're not letting me feel seen or heard. They're telling me that I am this, but I know I'm not this. And when I say, and they're not listening to me. And immediately the feeling of not being listened to, right, gets processed by you and you internalize it. They're not listening to me. They don't care about me. And then we're spiraling. Because there's already a wound there. So we have to work on not personalizing what someone says about you or does to you. So you can go, okay, that wasn't about me. That's about them. It's not about me. It's about them. That's exactly what he did. He didn't allow it to personalize and be like, I can't believe she's accusing me. It must mean she doesn't care about me. It must mean she doesn't trust me. It must mean that she doesn't want me. He didn't do that. And I think that's very, very powerful. And because he didn't do that, he was able then to reach out to offer the reassurance.
I'm okay with. So
I don't need it anymore. Okay, thank you.
Now, I know she felt stupid. Let's be honest. I know she felt stupid, and many of you would have felt stupid too when you've done this thing. When you've spiraled and you've accused your partner of doing X, Y, and Z. It doesn't have to be cheating. It could be they done this, they done that, and they didn't do any of those things, right? And that way of accusation really is more of the anxious side, but I think it actually I've seen this kind of behavior with fearful avoidance, where they can spiral into an accusation because what they're really looking for is safety. They're not trying to test you. They generally are having an overthinking situation, they're spiraling, and what they're looking for is safety. And so because of that search for safety, and they don't have always a healthy way of looking for it, right? One of the ways that happens is like this: an accusation happens, and then they see, how do you handle it? And the handling by Daniel allowed her to trust him even more, trust him even more, because the way he did it, he did not accuse her, he did not berate her, he did not insult her, he did not run away. He said, listen, whatever you need, I got you. If you want to go to Honduras, I will go with you. If you want to stay at home, I will stay with you. Whatever it is, I'm with you all the way in. I can guarantee she hasn't experienced that for a very long time. And that's why when they went to Honduras, she had to apologize again. She felt so guilty, because she probably felt like no one's really had her back and she hasn't felt safe for a very long time. Now, does that give her an excuse to just behave anyhow? No, but we are learning to grow in relationships. The fear of abandonment and rejection and betrayal is very strong. The hypervigilance for signs of rejection, strong. The need for constant reassurance, strong. The difficulty in staying in stable relationships because you're used to the up and down yo-yo, the toxicity, strong. But Daniel was great in this situation. And in my final words on this is, Daniel was great because he was emotionally stable and regulated. He didn't react impulsively. He didn't allow her emotions to dictate how he gonna act. Okay? My headphones go. He offered reassurance without enabling her behavior. Now, he didn't set any verbal boundaries, but what he did do is that the boundaries that he did initiate were through actually more of his actions, and he set values. Like, hey, I'm gonna work with you in this situation. Now, if this happens 2 or 3 times, I'm sure he might say something. Right? But he allowed it in this situation because he was trying to be an understanding, and I can respect that, right? He communicated directly. He assured us that, hey, I didn't do it. You know, I promise I didn't do it, right? And so his reaction to her and his ability not to go into a space of trying to absolutely prove himself, but also at the same time not running away and saying, how dare you, was actually a great balance. And what she would have found is that for Taylor, this is now becoming her safe space. This is a place where now she can fully be herself. She can show up and be true. She can now remove the armor that she has put on for a very long time that has helped her navigate through life and relationships. So listen, if this is something that you've also experienced, maybe you're understanding Taylor, maybe you see yourself in Taylor, I want you to be aware of yourself. Start recognizing some of your tendencies and patterns. You're self-sabotaging. All right? Start understanding how to self-soothe, because you're going to need it. You need time to be able to understand you and how to soothe you. All right, learn how to communicate before we assume and accuse. Let's learn how to communicate. Let's learn to say, hey, this is how I'm feeling, without having to go straight to an accusation, because that's where she went to, right? And learn to also start to Monitor how people handle very difficult situations and start to base your behavior on those things. If you're seeing that someone's very calm with how they handle something and you'd like to be that way, start modeling your behavior on that. But look, if you've gone through something like this, or you're feeling like you are somebody who is on the anxious or the fearful, avoidant kind of side, and you're trying to get to more secure, reach out to us. Listen, our coaching link is down below in the description box. I would love to be able to help you heal, grow, and transform. And, you know, I'd love to see you win. So make sure you guys like, share, subscribe, click on that bell button for notification uploads. We appreciate you guys stay locked and stay loaded. We'll see you again very soon.